We live in the most connected time in human history. You can message someone in seconds, watch anyone's life in real time, join a group chat, follow thousands of people, talk to strangers across the world, even speak to an AI that always replies. And yet, so many people feel invisible. Not physically alone, not always isolated, but emotionally unseen. Because maybe the problem is not that we lost connection. Maybe the problem is that we replaced belonging with access. We learned how to be reachable, but not how to feel safe. We learned how to be visible, but not how to be known. We learned how to perform connection, but not always how to receive it. Loneliness today does not always look like someone sitting alone in a dark room. Sometimes it looks like scrolling through people who seem loved, laughing in group chats while feeling unknown, posting parts of yourself, hoping someone notices the real thing underneath, choosing peace alone while quietly wondering why closeness feels so dangerous. This is the loneliness loop, a cycle where we crave connection but fear rejection, where we reach for digital contact but still feel emotionally untouched, where we turn aloneness into an identity because needing people feels too risky. So the real question is not, why are we alone? The deeper question is, why do we have more ways to connect than ever before, but fewer places where we feel truly known? This is HumanCode, and today we decode the loneliness loop.
You know, you might be listening to this right now on a phone that is like quietly buzzing with group chat notifications, or maybe you have a couple of dating app matches waiting in the background.
Right, or just a steady stream of likes rolling in on some recent post.
Exactly. Objectively speaking, as you sit there listening to us, you are more reachable, more visible, and just more plugged in than any human being in the history of our species.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yet, despite all of those incoming signals, you might still feel entirely alone.
It is, it's a profound and very modern type of isolation. You're surrounded by all this digital noise of human interaction, but none of that interaction feels like it actually belongs to you.
Right. And today's deep dive is tailored specifically for you, the listener, who wants to kind of understand the mechanics behind our modern lives. We are digging into a massive stack of research, global health reports, neuroscientific data, all to unpack the defining paradox of our time.
What we call the loneliness loop.
Yes, the loneliness loop. And the fundamental thesis we're exploring today is that modern loneliness isn't a lack of communication. I mean, we have an absolute abundance of communication.
Oh, we're drowning in it.
Right. What we actually have is a severe lack of belonging. So we're going to explore why we are hyper-connected at the level of access, but just terribly underconnected at the level of attachment.
And to really understand why a buzzing phone doesn't cure loneliness, we first have to understand what loneliness actually is, like objectively and biologically.
Which is such an important starting point, because the sources we're pulling from draw this very sharp line between objective social isolation and subjective loneliness.
It's a vital distinction to make before we get into any of the neuroscientific data, because social isolation is an objective, measurable metric.
Like you literally just don't see anyone.
Exactly. It means you have a small social network, or you go days without speaking to another person. But loneliness is entirely subjective. It's defined by researchers as the painful gap between the connection you actually have and the connection you deeply desire.
So you could live in a cabin in the woods, be completely isolated, and feel perfectly content.
Right. That is solitude. That's peaceful. Conversely, you can be sitting in a bustling open-plan office or, at a crowded dinner party and feel a crushing, suffocating sense of loneliness.
And the scale of that subjective pain is just staggering when you look at the global health reports. We are not just talking about a fleeting sad mood on a Sunday afternoon here.
No, not at all. The World Health Organization's 2025 Commission on Social Connection literally frames this as a global public health crisis.
Wow.
Yeah, they estimate that 1 in 6 people globally experience chronic loneliness, and they link it to over 871,000 deaths annually.
That is just, it's hard to even wrap your head around those numbers.
It really is, and it aligns perfectly with the U.S. Surgeon General's advisory from a while back. That report noted that lacking social connection can carry a mortality risk comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day.
Just 2 cigarettes a day from being lonely.
Yes. And if you flip that dynamic around, Julianne Holt-Lundstad did this massive meta-analysis of 148 different studies. She found that people with strong social relationships have a 50% increased likelihood of survival.
That's huge.
It is. Because the human body does not treat chronic loneliness as just an emotion to be processed. It treats it as a long-term state of physical, mortal danger.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right.
Because saying the body treats it as physical danger sounds like a neat metaphor, right? But the neuroimaging data in these sources suggests it is intensely literal.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's talk about the cyberball study, because that blew my mind.
Yeah, it's one of the most revealing studies in social neuroscience. So researchers used functional MRI, which tracks blood flow in the brain to show us real-time activity, and they had participants play a really rudimentary virtual ball-tossing game called cyberball.
Okay.
The participant thinks they are playing with two other real people. At first, everyone is tossing the ball back and forth, but slowly, the program is designed so the other two players start leaving the participant out.
They just stop throwing the ball to them.
Exactly. They just pass it back and forth to each other.
And just to be clear for the listener, we're talking about a crude, like early 2000s looking video game here. It's not a real life rejection at a party or something.
Right. It's a completely artificial, pixelated scenario. Yet, when the participants were excluded, the fMRI showed that their anterior cingulate cortex lit up.
Wow.
And that is the exact same brain region that registers the distress of physical pain. The brain doesn't actually have a separate dedicated system for hurt feelings.
Wait, really? It just overlaps physical and social pain?
Yes, completely. The pain of rejection isn't a poetic concept. Your brain literally processes it like a physical injury.
Which brings us to the evolutionary biology of all this. The Cassiopo-Hockley model basically argues that this overlap exists for a very good reason.
Right, survival.
Exactly. If I'm an early hominid on the savannah and I get separated from my tribe, I don't have claws or thick armor. Being alone means I am going to be eaten or I'm going to starve.
Precisely. Loneliness evolved as an ancient, highly effective alarm system. Just like the pain of touching a hot stove protects you from physical fire, the pain of social isolation protected our ancestors from the mortal danger of being left behind.
So it's a survival mechanism.
It is. And when that alarm goes off, your brain enters a state of hypervigilance. It wants you to get back to the safety of the group, so it drastically heightens your sensitivity to any potential social threats.
So if I'm understanding this right, my brain isn't broken when I panic over, say, a delayed text message. It sounds like the lonely brain is a hyperactive smoke detector.
That's a great way to put it.
It wants the warmth of a fire, but the moment it gets close to one, the alarms just go off. But if our brains are so desperate for connection, why does the brain suddenly interpret ambiguous things like that delayed text message as a mortal threat?
What's fascinating here is that the evolutionary alarm system makes the lonely brain so hypervigilant, it actually sets a trap. And the neuroimaging data proves just how hyperactive that smoke detector gets. Well, one study found that lonely brains detect social threats, like a tiny microexpression of disapproval on someone's face, in just 116 milliseconds.
Wow. And non-lonely brains?
They took 252 milliseconds. So the lonely brain is scanning the environment for rejection more than twice as fast.
And it isn't just scanning for threats faster, right? The sources say it's fundamentally changing how people perceive reality.
Yes, it really is.
There was that fascinating 2023 fMRI study by Bake and colleagues that looked at something called the default mode network. Can you explain how that network ties into this feeling of isolation?
Sure. So the default mode network, or DMN, is basically the brain's background processing system. It's what is active when you are daydreaming, thinking about your past, or crucially trying to understand the minds of others and your place in the social world.
Okay, makes sense.
Bake's study took a group of people and had them watch a series of videos while in an MRI scanner. They found that non-lonely people had very similar neural responses to each other. They were interpreting the emotional beats of the videos in a shared way.
But the lonely participants were different.
Wildly different. Not only did the lonely individuals process the videos differently than the non-lonely group, they processed them differently from other lonely people.
Wait, really?
Yeah, their neural responses were highly idiosyncratic.
Oh, wow. So they literally aren't seeing the world the same way as anyone else around them, not even other lonely people.
Exactly. It changes the entire emotional truth of their experience. We often think of loneliness as the thought, I have no one to talk to.
Right.
But Bake's study shows that at a neurological level, chronic loneliness is often the feeling of, no one sees reality the way I do. That lack of a shared reality feeling like an alien observing the world is incredibly profound.
Which naturally leads us to the digital paradox. Because if our biology is screaming for a shared reality and we feel fundamentally misunderstood, why doesn't our hyperconnected digital world satisfy that craving?
Because of how we use the tools. It comes down to the architecture of those platforms.
Right, because we have endless forums, niche communities, millions of people just a click away. Here's where it gets really interesting. Isn't blaming technology a bit of a cop-out?
It can be, yeah. Saying phones cause loneliness is definitely too simplistic a narrative.
Right. If I have 500 followers on a platform, or I'm actively chatting in 3 different group chats, I am technically engaging with human beings. Why doesn't that count as community? Why doesn't the brain register that?
I'm glad you brought that up because to answer that, we have to look at a 2025 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Medical Internet Research. They looked at nearly 25,000 participants.
That's a huge sample size.
It is, and they found a powerful bidirectional relationship. Lonely people naturally seek out digital tools to soothe their unmet social needs. The internet offers a low-friction way to feel connected.
Right. It's easy. You don't have to leave your house.
Exactly. The problem occurs when that digital consumption displaces real-world connection. You get stuck in a loop of passive scrolling, which researchers refer to as crowded isolation.
Crowded isolation. Man, that's a bleak phrase. So you're exposing yourself to thousands of people, but you're just a spectator.
Yes. You see others being chosen, desired, and happy, but you are receiving absolutely zero mutual recognition. A notification is contact, but emotional safety is belonging.
You are consuming the evidence of belonging without ever experiencing the emotional safety of it. And this leads to what sociologists call the TikTok paradox.
Right, the TikTok paradox.
Where millions of people bond in the comments sections over highly relatable, self-deprecating content about being lonely or anxious.
Yeah.
But wait, if I'm watching a video of someone expressing the exact specific anxiety I'm feeling, and I read thousands of comments agreeing, doesn't that provide that shared reality we were just talking about? I feel seen, don't I?
It provides a flash of recognition, which is intoxicating, absolutely, but it doesn't provide repair. The paradox is that relatability is not repair. Relatability is not a relationship.
Oh, that's a great distinction.
When you watch that video, you are engaging in asynchronous parasocial bonding. You are observing a reflection of your own pain, but that creator doesn't know you exist.
Right. When your car breaks down at 2:00 a.m., or you get bad news from a doctor, a relatable comment section cannot hold your hand.
Precisely. It's the mismatch between performance and vulnerability. Modern platforms reward visibility, speed, and a curated performance. But human belonging requires patience, vulnerability, and most importantly, imperfection.
So if you're constantly performing a false self to get likes or engagement, you are actually deepening your isolation.
Exactly, because even when you get positive feedback, your brain subconsciously knows they are applauding a character you created, not the real, messy you. You become highly visible, but remain entirely unknown.
Man. But let's say we put on the phones. Let's say we completely optimize our digital lives, delete the apps, whatever. We still have to step out of our front doors into a physical world that seems almost actively designed to make us lonely.
It really does. The structural and economic data in these sources is fascinating.
It's crazy. It moves the blame away from individual social skills and looks at the actual physical environment. Because we are living through what researchers term a friendship recession.
Yeah, the friendship recession.
The numbers on that are staggering. Relying on friends for personal support is way down over the last 2 decades. And time spent alone for people aged 15 to 29 is up 45% since 2010.
A 45% increase in just over a decade. And we really have to look at who is being hit hardest by this.
Right.
The OECD put out a 2025 report showing that loneliness is heavily tied to income, unemployment, and education levels. We often treat friendship as just an emotion or a personal choice.
But it's not.
No, fundamentally, human connection costs money, time, and stable housing.
So what does this all mean? It's like we're playing a giant game of musical chairs, but the city planners took away half the chairs, put a $20 cover charge on the rest, and then told us it's our fault we aren't sitting down.
That is a brilliant analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it describes perfectly what researchers call lonely-genic environments.
Lonely-genic.
Right.
Like obesogenic, but for loneliness.
Exactly. Historically, friendships were forged through repeated low-pressure proximity. Think about neighborhood schools, local churches, union halls, or even just the local diner.
Places you just go to exist.
Right. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg called these third places, spaces outside of home and work where people could gather for free or very cheap. You saw the same familiar faces every day, so you didn't have to force a profound, immediate connection.
It just grew organically.
Yes, out of shared presence. But those places are vanishing. We live in car-dependent, concrete-heavy areas where those free third places just don't exist anymore.
We've completely privatized modern life. I mean, we use delivery apps so we don't have to talk to a cashier. We work remotely from our living rooms. We stream movies alone instead of going to a theater.
We've optimized away all the casual daily friction that used to force us to interact with our neighbors. And when that social infrastructure collapses, friendship becomes an expensive, exhausting luxury rather than a natural byproduct of living.
So we have an environment that makes connection difficult, and a hypervigilant brain that treats rejection like physical pain. Faced with a lonely-genic environment, how is society actually trying to cope right now?
Well, the sources dive into some really interesting cultural adaptations, particularly from Gen Z. There is a prominent cultural trend right now called solomaxing.
Solomaxing?
Yeah. It's essentially reframing being alone as a form of intentional lifestyle optimization. Young people are rejecting the pressure to engage in the dating app grind or expensive performative nightlife.
Instead, they are maximizing their solitary peace. But the sources point out this is kind of a double-edged sword, right?
It is. On one hand, it can be a really healthy assertion of independence and boundaries. It's saying, I don't need a toxic relationship or superficial friends to be happy.
But on the other hand,
it can easily curdle into a defensive identity. People can make isolation their entire aesthetic, effectively using their solitude as armor so they never have to risk the pain of rejection.
right. Fortunately, there is also the counter-trend of soft socializing.
Yes, which is great. This is a movement toward low-pressure, activity-based hangouts, things that don't involve drinking or spending a lot of money.
Like doing a puzzle together at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Or just going for a walk. Side-by-side time, rather than sitting across the table interrogating each other over $12 drinks.
Exactly. It lowers the stakes of interaction, which is crucial for a brain that is sensitive to social threats. But alongside these cultural shifts, we are also seeing the rise of a much more radical modern coping mechanism.
AI companionship.
Yes, AI companionship.
And I'm going to pose a philosophical challenge to you and the listener here, because the evidence on AI companions is super mixed.
It is highly debated.
Right. You have a 2025 study looking at users of platforms like Character.ai, where people form these intense bonds with chatbots. The study found that intense, highly self-disclosing use by people with small social networks correlated with lower overall well-being.
Yes, that's what the data shows.
But let's look at the immediate utility. If an AI makes you feel genuinely heard, and it stops you from spiraling into crushing loneliness on a random Tuesday night, isn't that a win? Why does it fundamentally matter if the intelligence on the other side is artificial?
This raises an important question about the difference between soothing distress and building intimacy. You are absolutely right that an AI can reduce acute distress. It can de-escalate a panic attack or provide a safe sandbox for someone to rehearse social skills.
Without fear of judgment.
Exactly. But it is a dangerous substitute for a human being because it offers artificial intimacy. It offers validation without friction.
Right. It removes all the friction.
Precisely. True human attachment requires friction. AI offers infinite algorithmic validation. The bot never gets tired, it never has a bad day, it never gets annoyed with you, and it never needs you to compromise.
That sounds incredibly appealing when you're exhausted and lonely, though.
It does. But it means the relationship lacks mutual human commitment, mutual risk, and a shared reality. You aren't building a reciprocal attachment. You are essentially servicing a need for validation.
So if you use AI to replace the messy, awkward risk of human vulnerability, you are locking yourself deeper into the loneliness loop. You become even less equipped to handle the realities of a human friend who might, occasionally disagree with you.
Exactly. AI is a great bridge, but a terrible destination.
Okay, so knowing all of this, the biology, the digital traps, the economic environment, the AI coping mechanisms, how do we actually escape the loop?
Well, we have to look at evidence-based solutions.
Because based on the biology we discussed, the absolute worst, most counterproductive advice you can give someone is just put yourself out there more.
Oh, it is terrible advice. Telling someone whose brain is trapped in a hypervigilant, threat-detecting state to just go to a crowded party is like telling someone with a broken ankle to just jog it off.
Yeah, it completely ignores the brain's threat sensitivity and the economic realities we just talked about.
Exactly. The sources outline a comprehensive 7-layer solution model to address this. But to keep this actionable, let's focus on the key takeaways for the listener. It begins at the psychological layer.
Okay.
A massive meta-analysis by Massey and colleagues reviewed different loneliness interventions, and they found that the single most effective approach targets something called maladaptive social cognition.
Which is really just a clinical way of saying we have to debug the mental code that tells you everyone secretly dislikes you.
Exactly. You have to rewire the expectation that people will reject you. When you text a friend and they don't reply for 6 hours, your brain's smoke detector screams, "They are ignoring me."
Right. I am being rejected.
You have to actively challenge that interpretation and manually override the alarm. Think, they are probably just in a long meeting.
And once you start doing that, you can move to the behavioral layer, which relies heavily on structured activities. This explains the science behind why joining a local pottery class, a running club, or a community garden works so much better than going to a networking event.
Structured activities are brilliant because they provide a scaffold for a nervous system that is afraid of rejection. In a pottery class, you don't have the intense pressure of making eye contact and forcing a conversation.
Your primary focus is on the activity.
Right. The activity absorbs the social pressure. It's like we have to trick our own hypervigilant nervous systems. By focusing on a board game or a community garden, you take the spotlight off the social performance and let the connection happen almost by accident.
And vitally, it provides repeated proximity. You show up every Thursday and you see the same faces. The first week, you just nod. The second week, you complain about the clay.
And by the fourth week, your brain realizes these people are not threats, the hypervigilance drops, and familiarity slowly breeds emotional safety. Belonging is a slow process of repeated presence.
Which brings us to the relational layer. Repairing emotional loneliness requires moving from sharing updates to sharing your inner world.
Yes, an update is telling a friend, "My boss yelled at me today." Sharing your inner world is saying, "My boss yelled at me today and it made me feel like I'm failing." It requires vulnerability.
The goal isn't to accumulate more people, but to find safer pathways to mutual recognition. The research shows that establishing just one safe, recurring check-in with one person can completely break the cycle.
It really can. And finally, there is the digital redesign layer. Using tech strictly to facilitate offline plans rather than as a destination for passive comparison.
Use the group chat to set up a coffee date, and once the date is set, put the app away. Let the technology be the bridge, not the house you live in.
Exactly.
So to bring this deep dive to a close, the core takeaway from all this research is that our modern crisis is not a lack of communication. Reaching each other has simply become easier than truly knowing each other. It's a crisis of belonging architecture.
And if you are listening to this right now and you are feeling that familiar ache of disconnection, it is crucial to understand that your craving for belonging is not a weakness.
No, not at all.
It's not a character flaw. It is the most deeply human, biologically ingrained survival trait you possess. Your body is working exactly as it was designed to. It's the environment around you that has drastically changed.
Right. Your internal alarm system is just doing its job, trying to guide you back to the warmth of the fire. So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a different angle to ponder based on everything we've talked about today.
We spend so much of our modern lives using technology to eradicate friction.
Yeah, we use delivery apps so we don't have to talk to anyone. We use remote work to avoid the hassle of the commute. We use algorithms to find exactly what we want without searching.
But what if the everyday frictions of life that we've optimized away, the awkward small talk in a slow grocery checkout line, the inefficient commute, the shared boredom of waiting for a bus with a stranger? What if those slightly awkward frictions were actually the invisible glue holding our social world together?
Think about your own day tomorrow. What inefficient, slightly awkward piece of friction will you choose to purposefully invite back into your life? Because leaning into that friction might just be the spark you need to start finding your way out of the loop.